For more than 400 years, it's been one of history's greatest ghost stories. You know the one, an entire colony of English settlers in the New World that just vanished into thin air. But what if they weren't lost at all? What if the whole legend of the lost colony is just that, a legend, and it's hiding an incredible story of survival? Well, the real story, it all begins with one man's desperate journey home.
The year is 1590. The governor of the Roanoke Colony, a man named John White, is finally returning to the coast of what we now call North Carolina. He's been stuck in England for 3 incredibly long years, held up by a huge war with Spain, just desperate to get back to the settlement he founded.
And he wasn't just bringing back supplies. He was coming back for his people, all 117 of them, men, women, and children. And this was personal. His own daughter, Eleanor, was there, and so was his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas.
But when his ship finally lands, there's just silence. An eerie, deafening silence. The houses haven't been burned or destroyed. They've been carefully taken down. There are no bodies. There are absolutely no signs of a fight. The entire settlement is just gone.
All he can find is one single cryptic clue, the word CROATOAN, carved deep into a wooden post of the fort. And with that one word, a mystery was born that has fascinated and baffled people for centuries.
Now, to really understand what happened, we've got to rewind a little bit, because the truth is the Roanoke Colony was in trouble pretty much from day one.
The very first attempt, back in 1585, that was a military group, and it was a complete disaster. They picked fights with the local tribes and nearly starved before packing it in. So White's attempt in 1587 with families was supposed to be different, but they landed with the same old problems, not enough food, and a really bad reputation with their neighbors.
But you see, the colonists weren't just struggling against hunger and hostile tribes. They were unknowingly fighting a much bigger, totally invisible enemy. And this is where modern science gives us a huge piece of the puzzle. By studying the rings of ancient cypress trees in the area, scientists figured out that the colonists landed at the absolute worst possible time, right in the middle of the most severe drought the region had seen in 800 years. Trying to grow their own food, it would have been almost impossible.
So this crushing drought, it explains why they had to leave. But what about that carving on the post? Well, that brings us right back to the central clue, the clue that was supposed to tell everyone where they went.
Now, CROATOAN wasn't some random, spooky word. John White knew exactly what it meant. It was the name of a nearby island, what we call Hatteras Island today, and it was home to the CROATOAN people, a tribe that was actually friendly with the English. In fact, before he left, White had given them specific instructions. If you have to move, carve your destination into a tree or a post. So, while centuries of speculation have given us all these wild theories, alien abductions, zombie plagues, you name it, the actual evidence has always pointed to a much more logical answer. This was a planned relocation, a move to go live with a friendly local tribe.
And the proof for this wasn't just some old wives' tale. It was right there, hiding in plain sight in historical documents, just waiting for the right technology to come along and uncover it. And a huge piece of that evidence comes from John White himself. This is his Virginia Pars map. He drew it back in 1585, and for over 100 years, this thing was the most detailed, most accurate map of the North Carolina coast in existence. So remember, before White left in 1587, the colonists had told him they planned to move 50 miles into the Main, basically 50 miles inland. But for centuries, nobody knew exactly where that meant. That is, until a massive breakthrough in 2012.
Using some pretty cool imaging technology, researchers at the British Museum decided to look underneath a small paper patch that was on the map. And what did they find? A symbol for a fort, drawn in what was probably invisible ink. And where was it located? Almost exactly 50 miles inland, right where the colonists said they were planning to go.
This hidden mark on the map basically gave archaeologists a big red X. They now had a specific place to start digging, turning a 400-year-old clue into a real-life treasure map.
And here they are. Boots on the ground. Archaeologists from the First Colony Foundation started excavating at 2 spots they called Site X and Site Y in Bertie County, North Carolina, right near that area marked on the map. And you guessed it, they hit the jackpot. They started digging up dozens of pieces of late 16th century English pottery. Now, this wasn't stuff for trading. This was the pottery of everyday life, the bowls and jars and jugs that a small group of English families would have actually used.
The specific types of pottery were the smoking gun. experts confirmed that all these English and European ceramics were identical to pottery used during the Roanoke period, and importantly, they were totally different from anything used by later settlers. The point is, they had found a small, lost English settlement.
And get this, at the same time, over on Hatteras Island, the original CROATOAN, archaeologists found another bombshell, something called hammer scale. These are tiny, microscopic flakes of iron that fly off only when a blacksmith is working hot metal. This is rock-solid proof that English craftsmen weren't just visiting or trading, they were living there and working among the CROATOAN people.
So, when you start putting all of these pieces together, the drought, the carved clue, the hidden map, and the modern-day archaeology, the picture becomes incredibly clear.
The colony wasn't lost, it strategically relocated itself to survive. They were staring down a devastating drought, so they split up. Some of them went south to live with their allies on Croatoan Island. The bigger group went inland, to the exact location they had secretly marked on their governor's map. They didn't just vanish, they made a plan, and they followed it. As archaeologist Scott Dawson, who has spent years working on these sites, says, the whole idea of a mysteriously lost colony is basically a modern myth. The real story wasn't a spooky disappearance. It was a story about survival and adapting, which later got repackaged into a ghost story to sell tickets.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The colonists of Roanoke weren't ghosts, they were survivors. Their story is this amazing reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't solved by looking for phantoms, but by just following the evidence, no matter how long it's been buried.